I would like to now open the select board meeting on September 7th, 2023, seeing it at 6:30 p.m. I'd like to ask the Assistant Town Administrator to please read the executive session agenda.
Good evening. Tonight's executive session is to discuss strategy with respect to threatened potential litigation. If the chair so declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigating position of the select board in the town, and the chair does so declare to discuss the matter of 5 Star Building 4 versus the town of Sherborn, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, 3 and 7, and SEPA Construction versus DCAM 449 Mass, excuse me, 444, parentheses, 2007, the Sherborn Library.
Thank you. And I do so declare that we need an executive session to discuss this. And so I move that we enter executive session. I need a second and a roll call vote.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Eric?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
and I am I as well. So you want to let Sean in and turn the recording off, please, Diane?
Yeah.
It's now 7 p.m. on September 7th, 2023. I would now like to open the open session of the select board meeting and have the Assistant Town Administrator please read the open session agenda.
Good evening. So after I read the agenda, the board can vote to amend or approve the agenda. I have a public comment request tonight by Select Board Member Stephen Tsai. Items may be taken out of order and topics not anticipated 48 hours in advance may be added. Item number 1 is the special town meeting slated for October 17th, 2023. And that is to consider the signing of the October 17th, 2023 special town meeting warrant. Item number 2 is the proposed 40B on Brush Hill Homes, consideration of requesting an extension on comments to Mass Housing. Comments need to be sent to Mass Housing by Tuesday, September 26, 2023. Item number 3 is a consideration of acceptance of some various donations and grants, and Fire Chief Zach Ward will be here. Item number 4 is the consideration of use of sale of surplus equipment funds to update the police department mountain bikes, and consideration of the use of surplus equipment funds for public safety drone program. Chief Tom Galvin is here. Item number 5 is ARPA funding and an update and review from the recipients who have received ARPA funds for projects. That would be Woodhaven Leland Farms Water Project. Jeremy and Sean will be here to discuss that. The Farm Pond Stormwater and Stair Replacement is Sean Colleen. Item number 2 is the GIS Inventory of Wells and Septic, and Tom Trainer from the Groundwater Protection Committee is here to discuss that. Item number 3 is the irrigation of Laurel Farms. Jeremy Marset and Dave Goldberg from the Recreation Department will be here. Item number 4 is the digitizing of town records. Addie Mae Weiss and Sean Colleen will speak on that. Item number 5 is the town solar project. Michael Lesser, Jeremy Marset, and Sean Colleen will be here to speak on that subject. Item number 6 is the transformation of town campus. Sam Nelson and Jeremy Marset. Item number 6 is the municipal separate stormwater system MS4 permit program. There will be an overview of the MS4 permit program and permit requirements and phosphorus control plan, and Sean Colleen, Jeremy Marset, and a representative from AECOM will be here to talk about that. Item number 7 is the update on the Dopping Brook road drainage. Jeremy Marset, Town Administrator. Select Board discussion on water sewer district warrant article and prep for town meeting. That will be Marion Neutral will speak to that. Item number 9 is the consent agenda, which is the payroll warrant, the draft minutes of June 1st, August 10th, August 16th, and August 28th, 2023. And the last item is Select Board reports and Town Administrator reports.
Excellent. Thank you, Diane. Are there any recommended amendments to the agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as read? Is there a second?
Second.
All right.
Second.
Eric?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Marion?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
And I am I as well. So we'll start with Stephen Tsai making a public announcement.
Thanks. So as many of you may know, today the Pine Hill Elementary School was dismissed early at 11:15 due to the heat. And it's going to be nearly as hot tomorrow. And so it brings up an issue that I think has been sort of resting right beneath the surface, but is now kind of bubbling up. And Superintendent Beth McCoy sent a letter out to the Pine Hill families that I'm going to read mostly in its entirety here. So if you'll bear with me. Dear Pine Hill families, many thanks for your patience and support today as we prioritized the health and safety of our students and staff amidst a third day of oppressive heat and humidity. I hear and understand the concerns that an early release day causes around access to learning and childcare. I appreciate the flexibility and creative problem solving that everyone demonstrated in finding coverage, scheduling, play dates, etc. It takes a village, and today's collective effort demonstrates our commitment. In the spirit of taking a village, Pine Hill will have a full day of school tomorrow, Friday. All students will be in the building through lunch, after which time students in kindergarten and grades 1, 2, and 5 will be dispersed to air-conditioned rooms and spaces, kindergarten classrooms, auditorium, and library. And grades 3 and 4 students will be bused to the newly renovated air-conditioned library to engage in learning activities with their teachers. They will return back to the building for a normal dismissal at 2:15. Moving forward, we will keep the library option in mind on hot days. Additionally, this fall, we will be engaging with an architectural firm to conduct a feasibility study of Pine Hill School relative to its infrastructure and life expectancy. Based on the report, administrators, school committee members, and town officials will then begin making decisions about next steps for the building relative to air conditioning, etc. Thank you again for your cooperation and support. Sincerely, Beth McCoy. So I bring this up because the climate issue, it often seems a little bit distant, but in reality, I think it's here now. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that the Pine Hill Elementary School now has more heat-related closure days per year than snow-related closures, and it's only going to get worse. And while I'm glad that the library is open, so that grades 3 and 4, that includes my own son, can go to the library tomorrow, it's not an appropriate medium-term solution for this issue. So I'm really only kind of raising it to raise the public awareness of the issue. I don't know if the select board feels that this should be an agenda item in a future meeting to discuss with the superintendent, the school committee, DPW director, etc., to kind of help figure out what the long-term planning and strategy should be. But I just wanted to bring it up because I think it's a serious issue and it's a problem.
Thank you for doing that, Stephen. And I'm going to say Julie Dreyfus is pretty tricky because she's raised one hand to get our attention. He's holding a bird in the other hand. So I think she's pretty capable here.
It's a steppe eagle. It was a really heavy bird.
Okay.
Julie Dreyfus, Mill Street. I just want to second what Stephen is saying. So I'm a parent and member of the CSA, and also on the Board of Health, but I'm talking tonight as a citizen. I was in the building yesterday when it was also extremely hot, and teachers, students, everywhere you looked, people were sweating heavily. And while there are these really interesting kind of robot-like contraptions in the hallways to try to get some air moving in the hallways, in our learning spaces where kids are for most of the day in the classrooms, that air is not able to circulate. And so you see sweating, you see I saw kids laying on their desks, just head down and exhausted, teachers who were struggling to be able to teach, complaints of headaches. And I later found out from the administration, there were children who were throwing up. And these are all signs of heat exhaustion amongst our students as well as our staff. And if you were not in the building, or if you don't have a student at Pine Hill currently, there would be no way for you to know that this is happening. And so it is an urgent issue that relates to some of our most vulnerable population, our children. And I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. All right, so I'm glad they've got some interim actions in the long-term plan, so we'll be hearing more, it sounds like. Okay, so the first regular agenda.
Jeff, Daryl's got her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
I'm
ahead,
assuming she'll
Daryl.
speak on it too.
I didn't see your hand.
All right, Daryl Beardsley, Forest Street, rather than Board of Health, because we haven't had a chance to discuss this as a board. But given that it is having significant health impacts on people, I think it is the topic for the board to be aware of. And I guess, depending on where our discussion goes and how we might be able to help, but I think some of the challenges are beyond what we would normally do in terms of figuring out cooling, but we're certainly willing to pitch in as needed.
Great, thank you. All right, as I started to say, we'll go to the first agenda item, which is the special town meeting. I think Jeannie put this on there, signing the warrant, and I believe, Paul, you edited one of the articles, I believe, also recently.
Yes.
I liked what you wrote. There's only one typo in it. You have Washington Street, not Washington Street.
Right, I just sent, before we started the public session, I just sent the revised version.
It looks good to me, but let's see what the, let's see, Jeannie, do you want to give us a high-level intro first? Is she hiding somewhere? There she is.
I'm not hiding. Whatever the board wants to do, I can make the changes quickly and have it ready for you guys to sign tomorrow.
And you want all of us to sign it?
In the past you have, or you can have Jeremy or Diane sign it for you.
I'll do it in person, but we can see if people are okay with that. But let's go through it first. So,
Jeff, I've pulled it up on the screen here and actually put in the latest suggested edits from Paul.
yep,
So it's the 5 articles that we've discussed prior. There's no new articles,
Yep.
but with some wording updated changes. One suggested by Paul, which is highlighted here in yellow for Article 3.
Yep.
So what Paul's proposing is an article is highlighted in yellow. And then there was some wording changes for Article 5 that removed the discussion of the development agreement. So,
Yep.
other than that, this is the warrant as you've seen it in your prior meeting. And tonight we'd ask that you approve the wording and then come in and sign the warrant so that we can get it posted.
Yep.
At your next meeting on September 21st, you will likely want to talk through and vote your positions on these articles. So that's would be on the 21st if you so desire. And that would be ahead of the public hearing that advisory has scheduled for the 27th.
Yep. All right, are any select board members having read the latest version? I know Paul just added, but it was just a typo really, that he sent the content a while ago. Are there any select board discussion relative to the articles? Okay, hearing none. I think, Paul, should we make a motion to approve the warrant as drafted?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Eric?
Abstain.
Okay, Stephen,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I am I as well. So 4 in favor and 1 abstain. So how do people feel on signing? Are you able to come in the morning and sign?
I can come in the early afternoon.
Okay,
I
Or
can't
late
come in and
Monday.
I wouldn't be able to sign it until Monday.
is Monday too late, Jeannie?
No,
That's fine.
All right. So let's all try. Can you do that, Paul?
I'm out of town. So I would ask Jeremy to sign for me.
Okay. And Eric, are you able to do it?
I'm not gonna sign it.
Oh, you just, okay. That's fine. All right, so
When
we'll
we
have
get 3, we're good.
4 signatures.
Honestly, I only entered discussion because if there's anything came up about the wells, obviously. Or
Yeah,
the water,
no,
so-
that's fine. So we'll have 4 signatures on it. one
Yeah.
signed by Jeremy for Paul. All right, so that's good. Next one is proposal 40B Brush Hill. We had a great site visit today. It's kind of really beautiful site. So we're requesting an extension from Mass Housing till September 26th.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second,
Okay. Any discussion? All right. All in favor, Eric,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Marion,
aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I am I as well. And presumably I can sign that tomorrow too. Thank you for doing that. Now, next we'll have Chief Ward will make us aware of acceptance of some donations and grants they've received.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have a couple grants to accept first, and I'll go through the donations if you don't mind. So the only grant that we need the board to accept is a FEMA Assistance to Firefighters grant. It's in the amount of $27,047.61. That's for the purchase and installation of what's called a direct source exhaust capture system for Station 1. So that'll consist of hoses that hook up to the exhaust on the apparatus in Station 1 that basically pull the diesel exhaust out of the building, so the exhaust doesn't contaminate the building anymore. So, and we just need the board to accept that under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53A.
So moved.
That's your forte, Paul, accepting money.
Well, this is really important because it's for the safety and health of our firefighters.
Absolutely. Is there a second?
I second,
All right, Eric,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Marion,
aye.
Paul,
Aye.
I am I as well. So you have more though too, Zach, right?
Yes, I do. I just had one grant that I just wanted to inform you about. There's no action required from the board at this time, but a month or so ago, we were awarded about $59,000, and that was through a grant orchestrated by the Holbrook Regional Dispatch Center for additional portable radios. So we've been there for about 7 months now. We went through the town-wide grant award over a year ago, and I just wanted to inform the board that it's still paying off. So I can't thank Chief Galvin enough and everybody that made that happen. You know, in the form of this $59,000, it's still paying off for the town. So we wouldn't have got that grant without them. So
Yeah, that's terrific.
So
I
it's
even
good.
told the guy from Mass Housing about it when we were walking today.
It's good.
Not about the grant, but about the Regional Dispatch Center.
Yeah, it's great.
Hey,
So we have
Chief,
3 donations.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry,
Go.
I know. Go ahead, Jeremy. I apologize.
And no, I was just going to ask you to give a tally of your donations and grants after you're finished here.
So I don't have the number in front of me, but we have hit $1 million with the grants on the grant side, not including donations. So we're really happy about that at the fire department. And again, we're lucky we have other people writing some smaller grants now. So I think we employ the most number of taxpayers as far as any town department. So I think everybody here and certainly appreciates that. So and then we had 3 donations. Oh, sorry, Paul, did I cut you off? My computer's running a little slow.
I just wanted to call out Chief Galvin for the leadership he showed in coming forth with the idea of this regional dispatch. And he had said from the get-go that this could be the gateway to a lot of other opportunities. And lo and behold, his prediction has proved to be a reality. And this is very much in the benefit of the town. So I wanted to specifically thank Chief Galvin for that leadership.
Both chiefs.
I was gonna say, thank you, Paul, and I can't take all the credit. Zach and I worked very closely on that.
Zach too.
Okay,
Right.
anything
So-
further, Zach?
Yeah, I have 3 donations, $750 from the Joseph and Faith Tiberio Fund, a $400 donation from the Doherty family, and then a $3,243 donation from the Fire and Rescue Association. And again, we're looking for the board to accept those under MGL Chapter 44, Section 53A.
So moved.
All right, excellent. Do you have a second?
Second.
All right, Eric,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
I am I as well.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Jack. All right, the next agenda item is the use of and sale of surplus funds for two different police department needs. So Chief Galvin, there you are, Tom. You want to?
There you go. Yeah, sorry, I had to switch to my phone. I was having a little Wi-Fi issue. Yeah. So there's two things, and actually, go figure that within the first week of school starting, we probably could have used both. So the first is asking to use $10,000 of the surplus or sale of surplus equipment funds for a public safety drone program. And the Fire Association has already donated $10,000 to the fire department for this. So this would be a joint program. And there's so many benefits for both police and fire, for us, for search and rescue, but also for not putting officers in vulnerable positions when we don't need to. We actually had 2 incidents at the school this week. One that actually resulted in a shelter in place during the school day, and both which took quite a bit of time for us to search the woods around the school. One was an incident where the after school program kids just thought they'd seen a person in the woods with a weapon. And so they were moved off the playgrounds, and we searched the area. And then we actually had a person approach the rear of the school during the school day on Friday. And again, that resulted in a search and a canine and a perimeter and assets from several communities. It all worked very well, and turns out it was just a contractor who had come back to check on the work that people had done the previous day. But this, if we had a drone in a situation like that, we would have been able to quickly search the area of the cemetery and all the trails around the school. In addition and beyond public safety, and this is something that Chief Ward and I have talked about, this is also something that Sean could use with public buildings to check roofs without putting people on a roof. We could also work with conservation and trails and everyone in town that may need something to get an aerial view of something. This is something that we could share with them as it really is a town-wide asset. So that would be $10,000, and that would go for the purchase of the drone as well as the ancillary equipment. This is something that Klaus and I have been working on a lot lately to come up with the pricing and what we would need to make this program work.
So
Great.
moved. Allocate $10,000 for this purpose.
So I like the idea. And I know Framingham is a bigger city, but they got a drone, actually a couple of drones. So police and DPW got them. And at first you're wondering what to use it for. Then you wonder how you lived without it. So I like the idea.
We had that
What's
search
the-
about 2 years ago too. We had an escapee or something that, remember the guy got loose in the pond south of town or something off Washington.
That was just last year we had that. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean,
It's hard in the trails if someone doesn't want to be found because you have the tree cover in the summertime, but you can still use them there. Actually, it provides some good use. I'm just curious, what's the range on these things? Because that's sometimes a limiting factor.
So it depends. We've got it down to about 3 different products that we're looking at. So that it kind of varies based on which one. So Klaus and I are actually probably going to meet with one of the companies again tomorrow to kind of finalize what we're looking at for a product. But with the batteries we're looking at that 30 to 40 minute flight time. And the range is well beyond line of sight for the range. So
What's the expected like? Go ahead.
I was going to ensure, but I would encourage to bias along a range just strictly because how rural this area is. Whereas like in other areas, like, again, in Framingham, you can drive to anywhere and you're like 100 feet from anything. Whereas here it's amazing the big gaps between roads and trails. But sorry, Sean, go ahead. Yes.
What's the expected service life for these drones? Like, how long do you think they'll last?
So we're actually trying to think long term with what we're purchasing. We're trying to get not at an entry level, but kind of a mid-range drone that would be our initial drone for our initial training and for use. But with the plan that in the next couple of years to upgrade to something more sophisticated, and that we would keep these other drones long term for training. Because we're looking at the company DJI for the drones. And what's nice is in that enterprise and public safety category, even though the drones have different features and different price ranges, they all fly exactly the same and use the exact same platform to fly. So that with these drones that we start with, we would be able to keep these long term in order for all our training in the future.
excellent.
Yeah,
Now,
the drones
Paul, you
themselves
made a-
should last a while. The batteries do need replacement, just they're kind of consumable.
Yeah. Paul, you made a motion, I think, but do you want to wait? You want to approve both of these at the same time? The other is for the mountain bikes. Should we approve both, or you want to do them individually?
Well, I thought this was from the surplus fund. What is
They
the
both
bike-
are, but he hasn't described, I don't, did you already describe the mountain bikes, Tom?
No.
Yeah, I could do
He's
that.
not.
The second would be, we have a couple of old mountain bikes. We kind of realized how old they were recently as we had several of our officers go to mountain bike training school. And so we would be looking for, what did I end up with? $4,500. The bikes are actually about $1,800 a piece. And then it would be the equipment, the bags, and some other equipment that goes along with them, and a couple of new bike racks. To upgrade our bikes. We now have five officers that are trained, or 6 officers that are trained for mountain bikes. With the staffing and the way things are structured now, with the change to regional dispatch, we have the ability to get our officers out there. They can, address some of the complaints we've dealt with the our short stretch of the rail trail, but also be able to get into a lot of our other trail areas where if we're not in a car, when we're on foot, it's very difficult to patrol those areas and just be more proactive in those areas.
Right.
I had a question.
Your motion covers both, right, Paul?
What?
Your motion covers both. All right, is
Yeah.
there a second? I think Eric's just second.
I'll second, but I also have a question. I second, but I have a question.
Go ahead.
Where do you have the mountain bikes maintained?
So we would most likely, because the purchase will probably be from Milford Bike, and that we would use Milford Bike for our maintenance if we needed it.
Is it specialized bike that they supply? Is it a certain bike?
These would be Trek Police. They have Trek has a police line, and that's what we'd be using.
Okay.
Nice.
I can talk to you offline, but I would encourage at least I know Steve the bike guy, it's local, is in Sherborn, and actually has very, very good rates on his maintenance. He probably does not provide, I know it does not, Carry Trek does not provide that, but it's just something where I obviously bike and I shop all around and I know what prices are good and stuff like that. And plus, you literally ride there. I mean, it's as local as you get.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I have no issue with that, and we will talk to him and work something out.
All right. Excellent. Thank you very much, Tom. All right.
We have to vote.
Now we're going to move on to the.
No, Jeff, we have to vote.
Oh, we didn't vote? I
Yeah.
thought we. All right, my bad. Eric,
Aye.
he keeps me honest. Stephen,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
Paul,
Hi.
and I am I as well. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank
So
you very
the
much.
ARPA funding has 6 subcategories. The first one is Woodhaven Leland Farms Water Project. Do you want to lead that, Jeremy? Or coordinate?
Sure, yeah, Sean and I can help with that. So this Woodhaven Leland Farms Water Project, there's actually also an earmark in addition to the ARPA funding that together forms the full funding for this. This project, if you recall, is to basically consolidate the 2 water systems of Leland Farms and Woodhaven, to combine them together to utilize all those wells as one system. So it involves plumbing those all together and piping those together. And because we're doing that, Mass DEP has required us to do a treatment modification. So we've had to do a design of a modification to the treatment of that water, which has been submitted to Mass DOT. It has taken them quite some time to review that and get back to us. But they have just recently gotten back to us, approving our proposed design with some changes. They're looking for us to add some chemical addition that we didn't originally propose, which is going to increase the cost of the construction and the maintenance, unfortunately. And I should note this treatment does not cover PFAS. This is for other water contaminants or other water quality issues. So that it is certainly possible that in the future we'll need to do some sort of other treatment for PFAS at the site. But these funds in this design does not cover PFAS, but it will address the prior issues that were identified.
Would it be possible though that the piping could be configured in such a way such that, you had already valves to add the PFAS filtration system?
Yes, and we're accommodating where all the water treatment's going to be next to Woodhaven there's that shed. We have to expand that shed to accommodate this current treatment, but we're going to enlarge it further. We're going to make it larger such that in the future, we're hopeful that we could just add PFAS treatment stuff within that expanded building. We wouldn't have to expand it.
It's a small shed. I've been in
Yeah.
there. Go ahead, Paul.
It was my understanding when we were trying to get these earmarks, that this was going to replace the ARPA funds and free up those ARPA funds for other use. But when I read the packet, I was realizing that we're actually doubling our investment in this item, and similarly with another item that we'll get to later on. So instead of these earmarks replacing the ARPA funds, we are doubling our expenditures in these categories, which
Jeremy,
leaves
I
us.
can speak to that.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that that's the case yet. I mean, we've just recently received back from Mass DEP, you know, sort of the approval with changes to our design. We need to price that out again with our vendor. And, you know, maybe Sean has more detail, but it's likely that we will have a surplus of the ARPA funding, but we just don't know yet. So we're not comfortable saying that that we could release the ARPA funds as of now. Sean?
So one other thing, Paul may forget, I'll refresh your memory. We actually went, prior to getting the earmark and prior to ARPA even existing, we went to town meeting and asked for money. And then what happened is we got the earmark and we released some of that town meeting money. And then basically what was left we intended to cover with ARPA. So we dropped the town meeting article money and that commitment.
So where is that money now?
What's that?
Where is that money now? Is it?
We released it. We released it. We gave it back in last town meeting.
So it's already been reallocated? I mean,
I think it was just released. I don't think it was reallocated.
It's
Well,
unauthorized. So
Actually,
they removed
Heidi's
the
on there, isn't
authorization.
she?
Paul, on a town meeting, it's authorization to bond essentially, because I don't think that it was a retained earnings, or free cash. So it just simply didn't spend it.
Right.
I was just looking for more money to spend on some of these competing needs.
Appreciate that, Paul.
All right.
Well, I'm on board on saving as much ARPA funds as we can, to be honest with you. I do think we all
Agreed.
know that I'm the outlier that's not completely on board. You know, I voted to be a team player on all the allocations here, and I'd love to see some savings on all these projects.
We're hopeful. We have a meeting with the designer and our maintenance engineer later this week to talk about this project and hopefully get a refresh on the pricing and the maintenance costs. Preliminarily, the added chemical treatment that Mass DEP is essentially requiring is going to cost us an additional $25,000 a year in maintenance on top of we currently pay about $5,000 per year in maintenance. So it's a pretty big increase in maintenance as a result. But we'll know more at the end of this week, and maybe we'll have some surplus to give back.
Without going into detail, was it disinfection?
No, it was an adjustment for pH and alkalinity. We were going to use a neutralizing filter. They'd rather have us use a potash as an adjustment, an alkalinity adjustment.
Okay.
And that potash is something our vendor has done in other facilities of this size, so it's not unique, but it's not an inexpensive chemical, unfortunately.
So historically, the $5,000 a month, has that been paid for by the Woodhaven and Leland residents, you know, via HOA fees and rent and whatnot? And if so, is the plan that they're going to have to take on the additional 25,000 per month, or?
Correct.
Yes. They pay all the maintenance over there. I mean, but to say that Woodhaven pays the maintenance, it's commingled with town funds anyway. We bring their rent in and then we pay out their bills.
And
so that's not really going to change.
But still, it's a revolving fund, right? And so they're they're funded by they're not funded by taxpayer money, right? They're funded by rent, and then Leland, obviously, those are owned, right? So I'm just considering the fact that suddenly all of those residents have a much higher monthly water bill, essentially, that they weren't anticipating. So.
Yeah, and
collectively, yes.
Our next steps after meeting with our engineers later this week, I think one of our next steps is to meet with the overseers of Woodhaven and Leland Farms as well, to give them an update.
Okay, so do we know right now, in terms of the ARPA funding, how much do we have of the town's ARPA funds allocated towards this project currently?
98,000.
98,000. Okay.
I think Deb sent us the updated list.
Yeah. As of
Yep.
now, none of that has been expended.
That was a question. When we're done with this, I just want to have a few questions about the comprehensive list.
Well, we're going through them in order here. Is there a question you have on this one though, Eric?
No, just the viewing of the list. When it says the project here says it's complete, that means all funds are expended. It doesn't this mean it's encumbered?
Correct.
Because I see the first 6, it says here is all complete, so it's done, money's expended. Okay, that's what I was wondering about.
Apologies.
And,
Deb couldn't be here tonight. She was traveling, so I'm happy to answer any of those questions. So yeah, that column on the summary sheet that has the date of August 24th, that
Yep.
column is expended and paid funds. Paid out, project completed.
Also, if it's parenthetic, so it's whatever, that means that's project, that's money's been
paid.
paid.
Yeah,
Actually paid, okay.
actually paid out.
So where am I then? Anticipated unused funds. All right. Okay, of anticipated spending though, that's still in the future. So it's
Yeah,
under. Okay.
She
So
summed up
820, okay, the column of
entirety of the
825, I get it
anticipated
now, yep,
spending,
mhm,
and then
okay.
she tried to segregate that number out by sort of timeframes when
Okay.
it would be spent out by.
Yep, I definitely get it. That's good. Okay, very good.
Oh, could you actually clarify the difference between the 8/24/2023 column and the additional anticipated expense?
Mhm.
It has the 98,000 in additional anticipated expense, and you say that has been paid. That's gone.
That
I don't
the
think it
additional
is.
anticipated expense column has not been spent
Not
yet,
yet spent. Okay, fine.
but our
Only
payment
824 has been
plan
spent,
in
I
place.
understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's a Spanish projections beyond there.
Now, Marion, you had your hand up and you took it back down. Are you okay now?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay. All right. So we'll move on to this. I think it's not listed as a separate number, but tree removal is listed next. Sean, did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we're not done with the trees, but we're done with that money, so it's gone.
Okay. And same thing with the stormwater. We didn't do the stairs yet. Are you going to hold on that?
No, hold on, you're skipping, you're going faster than me.
I'm just going by they're all under item 1 on the agenda.
The farm pond stairs that's in process with an engineering firm called Stantec that we use for some of the other stuff. So they're,
Yeah,
they've
yeah,
surveyed the topo of the whole stair and the waterfront. And we're in the beginning phases of the design work for that. And anyone that's been to Farm Pond in the past month or so will realize what we're trying to solve is there's no sand left on the beach. It all got washed in. And that's, the changing of the walkway is going to help mitigate those issues with the stormwater coming off.
I'm there a lot, so I know.
I know you are.
Yeah.
Grab some fish on the way by.
Yeah.
So
All
on the farm pond stormwater, so currently we've funded the design component, but it's anticipated the actual construction cost is going to be far more than we can, afford through ARPA funding.
Yeah.
You do have $30,000 sort of earmarked for additional funds towards farm pond stormwater, this particular project. Those $30,000 are certainly not going to cover the construction.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a potential source for use on other projects.
I often wonder, I know it's outside the scope, I often wonder if would someday just get rid of those 2 paths that come straight down that hill as 2 paved paths, which clearly cause incredible speed on velocities and erosion, and create a more gentle path coming down from the overlook there, from the
Well, there is a
what's the name,
path
Pat Castle.
too.
That's the intent. We didn't hold them to trying to keep that wide, but the intent is try to put some switchbacks into the path, which will also allow some areas for some settling basins to try to hold that water back. There's a lot of water coming off that hill.
Yeah.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
just the paths, but we're trying to slow down the water that's coming through the woods, heading down to the pond. So that is the intent. And it may end up that we only end up with 1 path, which is fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
It looks like Daryl has her hand up.
Carol, yep. Do you have a question or comment?
Comment. I don't know how many people go up to the pond when it's pouring rain, but Michael and I have to look at the drains, and at the near the boat ramp, there's the grate running across.
Yeah.
And it is amazing how the design of that grate just bridges the water and it flows across, not into. It's a sight to behold. So take a look at that dynamic, but there needs to be a different design for grates, if any more are being put in, and that one should be replaced. It's not doing anything hardly.
All right, thank you.
I didn't understand exactly what Daryl said because she was kind of choppy. Are you saying that a better designed grate?
Yes.
Yeah,
The
I agree.
grate,
We're actually, we're trying to find a better grate that would fit into the actual structure that's there. Because I've seen the same thing. The water flies across it.
it goes across because even though they're openings,
Yeah.
the
Surface tension?
the structure, the bars going across are in line with the flow of the water, and rather than go into the holes, it goes across those pieces of metal.
Right.
And continues on its way down the hill. So I guess it's two-part. If that one could be replaced, I agree with you, finding something that is going to have things offset and miraculously fit that shape is not going to be simple. But if any other of those kinds of structures are going to be put in, knowing how the water moves across the grate in the position it's set up in is important. Not something we expected to see when we went up to see how it was going to work that first time it went in.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. Marion.
Thanks.
All right, I just wonder if you can tell me of the $80,000 that's budgeted for this out of ARPA money. Some of it's been spent, some of it hasn't. But what are we getting out of that 80,000? Is it going to be the complete design? Is it going to be the complete design and some of the construction? Or what exactly will that buy?
It'll be the complete design permitted. We included, off the top of my head, I want to say one, if not two, conservation meetings for the consultants to be there, because there's a pretty healthy amount of work for the permit through Concom for the wetlands protection stuff. So that's all included in the hope is after this, and the contract's finished, we have something to basically advertise and put out to bid, because this project isn't something we're just going to call a local landscaper to build, and DPW is not building it. It's something that'll be put out to bid, and or we have a final set of plans and it's shovel ready, and we go for one of several different types of grants.
So what's your ballpark idea of what the construction might cost? I won't hold you to it, but
yeah, you gotta ask somebody else.
It's
a couple $100,000, I think.
Yeah. What we need is Biden to create a works progress administration. They did the last one, didn't they? All right. Thank you, Sean. Next one, Tom Trainer on inventory of wells and septic. We talked about it today on the tour. Where are you, Tom? There you are.
Right here, Jeff. Thank you. And would you mind if I brought up my spreadsheet I shared with you?
Sure. Go ahead. So no, I wouldn't mind.
Perfect. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. I hope this is simple math. And thank you to your board and the advisory people who approved this $16,000 ARPA grant a year and a half ago. We have spent about 60% of it. You see that number, 9580, and that was for salaries for 3 part-time college interns that we've had working on the taking data from the paper plans from the Board of Health and Concom and the building department. And we've got this remainder, and we're actually in good shape. If it's all right with you, I'm just going to jump to some of the explanations that's in your packet and just highlight some. We've actually, through these three excellent interns, gotten through roughly 970 properties out of the estimated 1550, which is about 63% of town, and we've spent about 60% of our budget. So we're on track. We have a fourth intern starting next week. She's from Holy Cross. Number 2 and number 3 were from Holy Cross, and our first intern was from Clark University. We seem to attract Worcester students versus the greater Boston schools, but they've all been, I think, excellent resources. All three of them not only had introductory GIS courses, but at least had 1, if not 2, prior internships. So they really were able to accomplish a lot. We're doing this work on freeware. We didn't spend anything on software, no ArcGIS license. We're doing it on a very popular open source platform called QGIS, and it's on the town SharePoint. Let me stop there. Any questions about the budget or the spend? Because if you give me another 30 seconds, I want to hit some highlights of what we've accomplished.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. And it's interesting. I wasn't going to be predicting this going into it. We actually have found locations for about 90% of the 970 wells, but only 41% have complete drilling reports. And that's actually what my committee, the Groundwater Protection Committee, was most interested with, was both locations and well depths, depth to bedrock, depth to groundwater, things like that. And unfortunately, given the age of our dwellings and the type of record keeping that was done 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, those reports just don't exist, at least not in town files. On the septic side, a similar number of locations, around 90%. And another thing, I knew there were cesspools in town. I didn't know we had approximately 50 of them, but fortunately, every year several are upgraded to Title V systems. In addition to documenting all of the well and septic information, we've actually been able to use the new mapping database to help on a number of other committees and projects in town. We got the watershed mapping layer from the watershed management plan that the Farm Pond Committee is working with now. So we were able to give her all the septic's locations in the watershed so that she could do some of her nutrient contribution calculations. You may be aware of this, but all of our easements, like Eversource, like the railroad, like the pipeline, there's a lot of vegetation management around them, pesticide applications, and I've been copied from Board of Health because they're usually the first one that hears about the annual renewal, and we were able to find some wells within their 100 feet pesticide spraying. And one was at 59 North Main serving multiple houses. So we got the railroad to modify their plan. Some other quick examples, and you're going to hear in a minute about the Laurel Field irrigation project. we mapped the abutting wells, showing the nearest wells were 800 or 900 feet from the center of that field. And then finally, some things like flood modeling from the grant that the Energy and Sustainability Committee. We added a flood layer, mapping layer, and same with Sean knows this, stream crossings. And we're about to start the new renewal of the Sherborn open space plan, and we're hoping to use a lot of the mapping in that. So, any questions on our project?
No, I can see better if you unshare. I can see
Great.
hands better, but I don't see any questions.
Just a compliment. Well done.
Yeah,
Thank you. We've enjoyed it. Thank you for entrusting us with those funds.
it was a good project. And you also trained 3 young people or more. So
They trained me.
well, that's all right.
I mean, at 16 grand, I'll put this probably the highest of all of them of bang for the buck. I really would.
Totally. All right, thank you. We appreciate it. Next up is irrigation, Jeremy and Dave Goldberg.
Thanks, Jeff. Dave was with us, but I think he got pulled away.
I'm still here, but I'm in the car, so
That's okay.
hopefully you can hear me.
So I'll give you a bit of an overview where we're at with this project. I've been assisting Dave and the Recreation Commission on this, obtaining the permits and orchestrating contracts and so forth. Recently, the Board of Health granted approval and gave permits out for the installation of the two wells. Hopefully, maybe just one, but the contract we have in place right now with the driller and the hydrogeologist is for up to 2 exploratory wells to find water. Once we find the water, then it'll be tested. We do owe some follow-up testing to our testing protocol back to the Board of Health. They give a contingent approval on the well installation that we would follow up with a proposed plan to test the wells and to ensure that there was no impact on abutting properties' wells. And also that as a follow-up to once we get the yield and the system is designed, that we would follow up with an operations and maintenance plan that the Board of Health would have input on. So there's more to come on that. That will be submitted and reviewed with the Board of Health. But the well drillers hopefully will be out in the next 2 to 3 weeks to install the well and prove out the water. And then after that, we'll move on with the monitoring and testing. So currently we are under contract for $134,000, which was, I believe, discussed at your last meeting.
It was.
And as of now, in the ARPA funding proposed project, the select board has reserved another $190,000 that had been earmarked, so to speak, for this project. So if the water proves out, and the irrigation consultant can design a system, he'll be able to price it out, cost estimate it out. Then the Recreation Commission will likely be back later this fall with a request for additional funding to fund the construction of the irrigation system itself.
Yeah, I think there's some issues that we probably will want to discuss about the irrigation too, in terms of how frequent and how we make sure we don't deplete the aquifer through evaporation if possible.
Yeah, and that's in the testing being proposed by the hydrogeologist that the town's retained to assist with this. We've talked about, typically the Board of Health would require a 4-hour pump test for such a well. However, it's probably better if we do a longer term pump test with some monitoring of adjacent wells. So we're working on a proposal to feed back to the Board of Health to get their buy-in as far as a testing regime to make sure that there's no offsite impacts to the operation.
No, that's good. But what I'm talking about is the irrigation plan more than the well plan.
Yeah, and there'll be rain sensors, and the
Yeah.
water, the irrigation water wouldn't be used when it's raining. There'd be protocols in place, and actually the system would be designed such that it would sense rain and know the rainfall to use the water efficiently.
All right, we're really just doing an update here, so thank you. Anything further? Dave, did you want to add anything?
No, I think that was actually a pretty good summary. So thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, I think that once we know, as Jeremy stated, once we know the yield, I expect to be back on your calendar to request the remaining money to finish the design of the system, because until we know how much water we're getting, we really don't know whether or not we need holding tanks or anything like that. So that's still, we still need the money released to do that, and then obviously subsequently the funding for the construction of the project as well. But
okay,
I expect to be back hopefully once we know how much yield we have there.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so moving on, Addie May, you and Sean want to give a brief update on the town record digitization?
Yes, so we started with the funds that the town provided from the ARPA grant with moving in the direction of digitization. We did a lot of research, what it might cost to digitize, but the first order was getting files organized. So King Information organized did a chunk of organizing, and that took a lot of funds, and that's what the bulk of that 90,000 that was spent was merging all the files from mostly land use office and creating an archive of our files that were in storage. And then in March, we received a approval on the state earmark for funding. And that's why the original ARPA amount that was originally 241,000 was reduced to 141,000. And I guess the main point is we will spend it. We paused on the town spending of the 51,000 probably because we're going to spend the state funds. We've started doing the digitization with DataMerge, who's partnering with King, and we're just kind of getting it started, figuring out what cloud system we're storing this in, how are we tagging things. So that's where some of the delay on getting it going. We anticipate this coming week starting with, I'm going to start with one Woodland Street files and start trying to digitize those, all the land use, because all land use files now are street organized. So the paper files are there's one folder and there's a color code. So Board of Health files, conservation files, planning board, zoning, building, they're all in one central place now. So we will definitely be spending these funds. It's just we're jumping around as far as trying to spend the state earmark first and then jump into finishing off the town ARPA amount.
Yeah, but that's awesome to have them, not each having their own copies of the same files, and it's a huge undertaking and will be hugely beneficial. So thank you. Marion, did you have a question?
Well, maybe I'll take this offline because I do have a question about the process, but we're talking about the money now, and I think this is definitely money well spent. So
yeah.
I'll take my hand
As
out.
the process, I was hoping to have some before and after pictures, and I couldn't kind of get them between the Apple device and the PC device to work. But I will share with you all next week just some before and after pictures, because it is pretty incredible. The things are organized. Since we've started working with King to organize the paper files, everyone at Town Hall has been going through all of their files and boxes and things that were they kind of knew what was in them, and now there's a data archive and a database that you can search to try and find files that maybe if you're looking for things, it's making things a lot easier, and that's just at a paper file format. So knowing where to find things, because we kind of know, okay, this box is in this location and we can find it. And then when we get to actually digitizing more, that'll be wonderful. Even for what we started with, which we started with the road layout plans for digitization, because they're not used very often, but they are the larger and some of the most fragile and oldest files that we had at the Public Works building. And so because they are so large and we're fragile, they've taken time, but it's given us the ability to figure out the framework for how are we storing, how are we tagging, how are we accessing the digital files.
Great, thank you for persevering. It's really a labor of love, to say.
My hand went up again, first to congratulate Addie Mae at, this is a huge, huge project. And Sean, I mean, you're brave for taking it on. It sounds like it's going really well, but a lot of work. My question is, other towns are doing this and using the same companies. Are towns all using kind of the same organizational process? Because it seems to me it would be good if they did.
I mean, the basic idea of how you tag items, how you search them, the thing that we've struggled with as a town is because we don't have an IT department and we don't have that staff. We a lot of towns, when we first started with King, they said, okay, we'll do this and then we'll hand you all the data. And they were, initially came. And so that's why then they partnered us with Data Merge, because we realized, well, if we get handed all the data, we don't have that ability to store it and index it and properly. Yeah, sure, it's great to have a bunch of scanned documents, but it's worthless if you can't find things in that library.
All right. Next one is, thank you, Addie Mae, is the solar project. I don't see Michael here. You're going to present this, Jeremy, or summarize it?
Yeah, I can give a summary of where we're at.
I don't see him there unless he raised his hand. I don't think he's here.
I think he's in a Concom meeting.
Yeah, Conservation's having a meeting right
Oh,
now.
I forgot. That's right.
So we've proceeded ahead with a contract with Select Energy to install the fire station solar. It'd be a roof mounted solar system. To refresh your memory, that project will supply about half of the usage for the fire station. And based on the calculations, the financial calculations for the project, it has a simple payback of 5.5 years. So it's a pretty quick payback and return on investment. Currently, the installation cost for the rooftop solar at the fire station, the contract's for $94,000, a little bit more than we anticipated, but that was due to some of the delay in getting the contract approved through our vendors. But still a very viable project. And the contract's now executed and scheduling is now occurring. Hopefully the solar panels will be installed later this fall. There is a little prep work that we need to do to move a couple of vent pipes on the roof. But that's minor work that Sean is coordinating. The other solar project that had been sort of considered in the past was to place rooftop solar at the transfer station. Sean can give a little more details as to why we're backing off of that project. But at this point, we're just proceeding ahead with the fire station solar, and we'll leave for another day the transfer station roof solar. So,
okay.
But, Sean, anything you want to add for context there?
No, unless others need it. Like you said, we'll work on the transfer station as a whole nother project, I think.
So the select board had approved 115,000 of ARPA funds for these two projects. We've committed 94,000 in change for the fire station solar project. So that does leave a balance that we don't anticipate needing, but it's there for contingency until we have the solar panels installed, of 20,500.
Yeah.
So that contingency, if you will, that 20,500 is likely going to be available, or some portion of it will be available in the near future to allocate to another project.
And I think we have to expend or complete the ARPA work by the end of 2025. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So we just got to be conscious of that too, obviously. All right, that sounds good. Sam, I see you turned your screen on. You want to update us on the town center campus, please?
Sure. Let me share my screen if I can.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, maybe I'm not going to share my screen. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you fine. You're welcome.
All
to
right. So I just got a brand new computer and I'm wrestling with some of the new apps on it. So I do not have this one done. So let me just go ahead and give you a quick overview of what we have accomplished so far. And that is to begin with the hillside staircase, which is probably the most expensive item on this ARPA project. We have a design that was done by Hadley Berkowitz, Janet Walsh, and Wes Worth. The design is attractive, it's very durable, it's easy to traverse, and we have recently hired Hancock and Associates civil engineers to produce a detailed construction plan that we can use when we put this out to bid. So that is ongoing right now, and we hope to make some progress on that this fall, and hopefully we might even be able to get some work done on it on this fall. Second, the town hall pocket patio. You might have seen going around the back of town hall that there's been some excavation done in the back. We were just there today, Sean and Janet and our new contractor going over what the construction plans were going to be. And there's going to be a nice little pocket patio back there with a table, a bench, some trees. And it's going to be a very nice place to congregate and meet when you go to town hall. Third, town campus lighting. Our goal is to replace the old globes, which are mismatched and many are broken. Many are the fixtures are not working, and to get them all working again with all matching globes all across town campus. And we are testing different fixtures right now. There is one fixture that we're testing right now, which is at the very bottom of the ramp that goes up to the new library entrance. It's a round, white, opaque globe. It looks similar to the ones that we've had in the past, except that it's opaque and is made out of plastic. It has as its virtues that it is replaceable and affordable. It may not be the most ideal, but many of these other fixtures are extremely expensive. So we are still looking into these and we have yet to make a final decision on those. And lastly, I wanted to thank Sean and particularly and Public Works for cleaning up the West Campus. That used to be a construction holding site when the library was under construction, lots of materials over there. That's all been cleaned up. A lot of the dead debris along the swale has been cleaned up and is now a really beautiful spot over there that we are looking to add some benches, some walkways to make it a more usable spot. And perhaps in the future, there's been some discussion about possibly adding a structure like a gazebo or pavilion, but that would have to be with different funding and not ARPA funding. So that's kind of the overview of what we've achieved so far. And if you have any questions about the budget, you can direct those to Sean and Jeremy.
Okay. Thank you, Sam.
Sure.
And so we're going to move on now. We're finished with ARPA. We're going to talk about the MS4 permit program, and we've got AECom here cooling their heels waiting for us. So Sean, you want to lead us through this?
Well, I'm going to kick this off to the AECom team.
Yeah.
I think they have some slides, so you're going to need to let somebody share.
Yeah, that's fine. They can do that.
Unless Jeremy was going to throw them up there.
Let's
But
see
we have
what
several members. Kate, maybe you can introduce everyone from AECom.
Yeah.
I was actually going to let James do that.
Yeah, I'll be brief on the introductions here, but my name is James Petrus and I'm serving as the project manager on our existing task order under a master services agreement with the town of Sherborn. Kate Mignon serves as our project director and has been supporting the town on the MS4 program for over 10 years in various roles. With us also tonight and will be the main presenter is Yulia Barbu, who led the development of the draft phosphorus control plan for the town. And driving the slide deck and sharing the screen will be Matt Delp, one of our civil engineers and stormwater and resiliency experts. So we have about a dozen slides. We can go through them pretty quickly, but we're also happy to stop and dive into the weeds if you like. So with that, Matt, are you able to share the deck?
You should be all set.
I'm getting the thumbs up from Matt, but I'm not seeing a
Yeah,
change.
we don't see it. We don't see it yet, but
Wait, you don't see it?
Not
Okay,
yet,
sorry,
no.
I kept myself muted because I had the PowerPoint on over top of my screen, but give me one moment.
yeah, but you're allowed to share.
Now it's coming.
Yeah, there you go.
You see it now?
Yeah.
But maybe go to the presentation view where you don't see all the
Oh, yeah.
menu stuff, if you don't mind.
Nice.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right, and you can jump right to the second slide and I'll toss it back over to Kate.
Thank you, James. So then this MS4 permit began in July of 2018. So for about 6 or 7 years prior to that, we were supporting other services, whether it was mapping of the outfalls and the catch basins, and just supporting Sherborn primarily, I think, between 2009 and when this permit came out, with just various stormwater activities through those years. And this permit really covered the grayish tan areas that were the MS4 regulated areas within primarily the center of town and then a couple pockets to the north and to the south. Since then, we've been continuing that support through various mapping and other efforts, which I'll talk about in the next slide. We're currently in year 6 of the permit, which began on July 1st, and the annual report is usually due on September 30th. So the September 30th annual report will cover the year 5 activities, and then next year, the next report will cover year 6 activities. So it's a July to June 30th permit series. So we're also expecting that there's going to be an updated permit. That's what EPA and DEP are promising, because this permit is now 5 years old and they're starting to realize that there are some issues or some things that kind of are coming out as we're going from year 6 through years 10, which we'll talk about at the conclusion of the slide deck. So next slide. So as I mentioned, we've been doing annual reports for the town of Sherborn for all of these years, for the permit years. And that really does talk about all the work that's been done in the town. And we have a lot of support from Sean and his group, as well as like other local officials in the town. And so we go out and we'll look at the roadways, look at where the catch basins are, look at the outfalls, and determine if you have anything coming out of the outfalls, do any sampling if necessary. We also have produced and worked with People GIS to produce these maps and show all the locations of the catch basins and the outfalls. We do illicit discharge, detection discharge elimination training with different town officials, just to make sure that they understand what's going on in the town. Talk about like gas spills or paint or anything that might enter the water bodies. And then we also have helped with other stormwater projects within the town as requested. But the primary purpose of tonight is really to go over the biggest thing that's come up to date is the phosphorus control plan, and just kind of where you're at now that we've done a lot of work on it through year 5, and what some of the considerations might be for year 6 through 10. So I'm going to turn it over to Yulia now to walk through the phosphorus control plan.
Thank you, Kate. Next slide. So in the past, we have submitted reports annually, and in the past, again, we've submitted different sections of the actual current PCP plan that we need to submit. This included an overview of the phase 1 milestones, general characteristic of the watershed and community, the phosphorus control plan load reduction that we are targeting for the township, a legal analysis which looked at whether the town has in place all the ordinances and other requirements that would allow implementation of the PCP. And also we looked at funding source assessment. Next slide. Being in year 5, reporting for year 5, we are asked now to submit information on 5 other sections. One of them is the non-structural controls. As part of the permit, the town is allowed to get credits for all the non-structural BMPs, such as street sweeping, catch basin cleaning, leaf litter control and collection. And in the past, we submitted this information, but we had only general assumptions that we made to regards of the area that it's covered by the town and that would take these credits. And this year we spend the time to map the extent of the treated roads, and we have the final numbers here, which will not change in the future unless the permit allows us to get higher credits. So for the MS4 area alone, we found that we can get credit for 10.4 pounds per year. And if we would do the computations, or if we take the community-wide approach, we would only get 20.52 pounds. And for the entire community, we did not do the detailed mapping and analysis. We just extrapolated the percentages from the MS4 area to the community area. Next slide. We also had to report on the structural controls that the town is planning to implement over the next 5 years, because we need to reach certain phosphorus load reductions for year 8 and year 10. For example, we need in year 8, we need to have a reduction of 20% for the entire permit duration. And in year 10, we need to reduce the phosphorus load by 0.25%. So we did an initial desktop review to identify some locations that looked promising for disconnection and treatment. And then we went in the field, we did some field reconnaissance, and in the end, we moved on with 5 proposed BMPs. In order to compute the phosphorus loads and phosphorus credits that we will get from implementing these BMPs, we had to use a tool that EPA provided, and that is OptiTool. All the townships are required to use the same means. And these are the 5 BMPs that we are proposing, and using the phosphorus loads and phosphorus loads reductions that are already built in this OptiTool software. We found out that we can remove about 9.3 pounds per year. It's a very small number that we don't think it is realistic. There are some shortcomings in the OptiTool software that we hope EPA will address in the future. Next slide. And these are the BMPs that we are proposing within the town, the MS4 area. One is near the Lenge Drive Leland Drive. The yellow areas are the drainage areas that we can disconnect. The red shading, that is town-owned land. And the blue footprint, that would be the location of the BMP that we are proposing. And to get as much credit as possible and as much benefit for the investment, we chose the locations where we could intercept a larger outfall that disconnects a larger area of the town. So we have one at Leland Drive, another one near Parks Drive where there is an outfall, and the largest one of all would be the one near the South Main Street. Next slide. And we found two other locations where we could intercept larger outfalls. These two are not on the town-owned land. However, for the Deerfield, the one near the Deerfield Road, the land is owned by a rural land foundation. So we thought there might be an easier access to this land. And the one near Ivy Lane, it is on private property, but there is an easement that the town has to access that pond. Next slide. The permit also allows us to take credit for any BMPs that are existing within the MS4 area. And we only identify two BMPs. One is next to the DPW and another one at the police station. And we would need to show yearly maintenance and have the original design plans to be able to take credit for this BMP, which we did not have access to. So we assume that those BMPs function properly and that they were designed to receive and treat the first 1 inch of rainfall. And the amount of reduction, it's about 3.45 pounds per year. Next slide. These are the two BMPs. The dark pink areas are the actual footprints of the existing BMPs. Next slide. Section number 8, it's requiring us to include a description of the O&M that the town has in place, and we have reviewed what the town already has, and we think that they cover very well all the BMPs that we are proposing here. So no need to adjust that. For section number 9, we also need to include in the PCP report implementation schedule, basically to have a plan on how we are going to meet the 20% phosphorus reduction in year 8 and the 10-year 25% reduction. So looking just at the MS4 area, we would need to reduce the phosphorus load by 23 pounds, and by year 8 and by year 10 by 28.75 pounds. If we would look at the entire community, the requirements are much higher. So those 20% would come to 69 pounds. And for the 10-year milestone, we would need to show that we can reduce the phosphorus load by 86 pounds. And with the current BMPs that we proposed and with the amounts and credits that the current Opti tool provides, we are going to meet year 8, the 23%, 23 pounds, but we are very short of meeting the 28.75 pounds in year 10. And the hope is that these tools will be amended and that new next iteration, we might be meeting the 10-year milestone as well. Next slide. The permit also requires us to show how much the phosphorus control plan is going to cost. For the non-structural PMPs, looks like it's going to cost about 50,000 per year. And we also have here a table with the cost that would be needed to cover the 5 BMPs. And the Opti tool also has the design and maybe construction cost included. And as we look through all the references, the cost data that they incorporated in the software, it's from 2016. So we had to bump that up and estimate the cost or project the cost for 2023, 2025, when we think that these BMPs will be built. And we also added some contingency. And here in the last column of the table, you see the overall cost for the 5 BMPs, which would be, we estimate will be between about $500,000 and close to $1 million. Next slide.
Thanks, Yulia. Yeah. That's okay. Thanks. So obviously that is a lot of money for the town of Sherborn to encumber for BMPs for stormwater, where you're cutting down trees and taking land that really was pretty virgin land and making it into BMPs to meet this phosphorus control goals by EPA. So we tried to soften the language in the phosphorus control report that would be submitted with the annual report, saying that these are the 5 locations that currently are in the running in the town of Sherborn, but that we think that there are shortcomings with what EPA has for the Opti tool and for what they're giving different towns, communities credit for with like their pervious areas, and for those locations that are just wooded areas, and that Sherborn is a community that is getting hit hard because of the type of land use that you currently have. So as we've mentioned, we do think that there is another permit coming out, because the permits usually come out every 5 years. There should be some updates. I think that EPA and DEP have heard from many communities about the Opti tool and some of the issues that they're having. And so that's kind of where we've landed, is to say that, okay, you're meeting what you need to for year 5 for the annual report, you're submitting what you need, but knowing that from year 6 to year 10, this is a lot of money for the city to outlay, or for the town to outlay, and to try to come up with maybe other ways to do this or get credit for the land use that you currently have. And that's the end of our presentation. So at this point, we'd be open to any questions or concerns that the board has.
No, Lulia, that was a great presentation. The whole team really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Maybe if you, Matt, if you unshare, I can see questions easier. Thank you. So yeah, Marian has a question.
All right. Fortunately, I had heard about this before in a webinar, so I was able to follow, but people might want to know what BMP stands for. What does that mean?
Best management practice. So in stormwater terms, there are different types of best management practices that you can use, whether it's non-structural, so that's not something that you have to build. So it's like street sweeping or cleaning up debris. And then,
I just wondered what the BMP meant. Yeah. So my overall comment is that this really hits towns like Sherborn hard, because we start with a relatively low level of phosphorus compared to places with a lot more runoff, a lot more development, etc. So I understand that we're kind of mathematically disadvantaged here, but I do have a specific question. I was surprised by, I don't know what all your choices were for locations and BMPs, but BMP structures, you would say. But I was surprised by your choice of the Parks Drive option because the phosphorus saving there is really small. It may be 95%, but you know, it's such a small amount to begin with that it's marginal in terms of phosphorus reduction. So what was the thinking there? Is that the only one you could come up with that made any sense? And you needed 5, you only had 4, or how did you figure that out?
I can help answer that.
Go ahead.
So if you look, and Marion, you might be the best person to do this. If you look at that map really close and look at just remember, we have to do this inside the MS4 area. We're not using the whole town. So we're really very, very limited on land where we can do this. Both because of private property, you prefer to do it on easements or on town property. And you got to do it where it's beneficial. There's really not that much land. The largest stormwater systems in town aren't even in the MS4 area. The Pine Hill School's not in the MS4 area. And then some of the other ones just head right to the wetlands before we can interrupt them. Like Cemetery Lane, which catches a massive amount of stormwater downtown, just goes from outside the regulated area. It crosses under Popolo's building and heads right into the water. We couldn't possibly do anything with it, so we couldn't treat that water. And I agree. You said it nicely. Doing something on Parks Drive is ridiculous. But that's where this permit has put us.
Okay, I get it. The cost benefit analysis of the Parks Drive project is kind of crazy, though. I mean,
yeah, it'll benefit no one in town. Yeah. It's not going to help anything except satisfy the needs of the phosphorus reduction. And while I have the mic, I'll just quickly. They put it kind of nicely that the Opti tool might be modified, the permit might be modified. Frankly, as a taxpayer, as somebody here that thinks about stormwater an awful lot, we get 0 credit, not a little bit of credit, but 0 credit for the massive amount of floodwater and water treatment that we do in town at a cost to all the taxpayers in town, because all the undeveloped land is acting as flood stage for the Charles River watershed. And there is phosphorus reduction and we're not getting credit for it. And that's a problem. And this board should think about that in future dates when we want to try to push back on this, because we aren't contributing a lot of phosphorus to the Charles River by any means compared to all our neighbors, but we're having to do an undue burden while massive swaths, not hundreds, but thousands of acres in town are being flooded to help with the storage of the water for the Charles River. And we're not really getting credit for that. The upland, the woods, and the flood stage.
Realistically, Sherborn contributes almost no phosphorus, really no phosphorus to the Charles River. The regulated area doesn't abut the Charles at all. The tributaries like Sewell Brook hardly go through it, barely touch the regulated area. Regulated area is based on the 2002 and 2010 census, what they defined a certain density to be considered urban. And in some ways, I guess it doesn't even meet that, actually. And so Sherborn's is a pretty rural area. It's pretty spread out. If you look at the appendix for the NIPD's permit, which lists out all the communities in the Charles River watershed, we have the lowest actually requirements to remove phosphorus of all the communities there. But inherently, they just basically they issued this permit. It was set in their mind. When they issued it, I want to say, I don't know how many hundreds of comments they got, and it changed like 4 pages of the permit. It is simply is what it is. So pretty much the only recourse at this point, because the appeal period is over, is you sue and see if they will change the permit based on that. And I doubt we'll go down that road.
Yeah, well,
agreed.
What other
The
options?
time frame is relatively quick in that we have to submit this phosphorus control plan as part of the annual reporting, by the end of September. And then by year 8, which is 2 years away, these BMPs would need to be actually funded and constructed. So, it's a potential $1 million to remove 9 pounds of phosphorus per year. Would that $1 million be better spent somewhere else in the community around Farm Pond, which is not actually in the MS4 area? Quite possibly, but The permit is what it is as issued by the US EPA.
Should use ARPA funds.
All right.
Well said, Jeremy.
Paul,
Thank you.
Paul, and then Tom.
So I'm aware of another community that's looked at what was the source of the phosphorus in that community. And they determined that a lot of it was coming from fertilizers being used on lawns. And so they had a very simple solution. Ban all phosphorus use for lawns in that town. Then you don't have the stormwater carrying the fertilizer into the streams, and the streams won't flow into the river, and the river won't flow into the North Atlantic, and so on and so on. Simple and not a burden on the taxpayers, other than some enforcement.
The reality is that does remove it. I don't know if you get credit for that, and maybe AECOM can answer it. But
we did discuss that with AECOM, and really on a broader level, we've been advocating to do that at a statewide level, not local, community by community. Because in reality, where's somebody going to buy their lawn fertilizer? They go to a big box store that's carrying the generic brand that they're shipping to Massachusetts that has the phosphorus in it and the nitrogen. And in reality around here, you really don't need the phosphorus in your lawn fertilizer, so it could easily be taken out. But it's not the type that's been shipped here to the Commonwealth. So it's just one of the interesting things about the regulation of stormwater being on a community level, not a watershed level, or not a regional, or county or statewide level. We've got a certain amount of oversight over what happens in Sherborn, but what happens across the town line and other communities is in the same watershed, but is regulated and managed totally different. So it's not a very efficient way, in my opinion, to manage stormwater and to permit stormwater, but that's a philosophical issue.
If you did eliminate phosphorus use on properties that actually abutted the Charles, you probably would make a real difference more than everything that's displayed on here, to be honest with you. But it's just not how it's set up. Your property excluded, of course, Paul, but I'm saying anyone else that abuts the Charles, if you actually stop using phosphorus, it'd actually make a difference. But it's just,
in reality, there's more phosphorus coming from the farms in town than there is from the residences, and that we can't regulate that. Yeah. I think this spring we are going to ban phosphorus in the fertilizer. I think that's going to come up through the planning board for the stormwater regs. It's actually hard to get residential fertilizer right now that actually legit has phosphorus in it. Farms can still use it, but I doubt there's any in town that are. Certainly not Silverwood and the other organics. They're not using the phosphorus.
But to Paul's point, if there was a bylaw, then we could take a non-structural credit for that phosphorus removal. If that was a bylaw that banned the use of phosphorus. Right. And AECOM, do you have any quantification of that? I think we chatted about it some time ago.
Yulia, can you comment on this? Because I know you looked into this, and my recollection is the permit allows for certain credits for non-structural controls like street sweeping and leaf collection, but I don't believe there's anything in the permit. I mean, it makes common sense, but I don't think there's anything in the permit that allows you to claim a reduction for banning fertilizer.
I think it's required.
So there was some credit. It was mentioned in the previous version of the permit, but it was taken out in the current version. And the hope is that they will put that back into the permit for the next update. We do not have numbers on those credits, though.
It seems a town should get credits as well. Oh, sorry for jumping in. No, go ahead, Paul and Tom, and I'll pipe in afterwards.
No, I think Paul just has his hands up from before.
But I should disclose under the State Ethics Act, Section 23B3, that do own property that includes the waterfront on Charles River and also the land under the Charles River. And in fact, by this ancient grant from the King of England, the actual waters of the Charles River. So it may appear like I have a conflict of interest, but because this is an issue affecting the whole community, and not only the whole community, but the whole region, that I believe I can look at the issues dispassionately and not.
No, I didn't mean anything when I mentioned that, Paul. To be honest with you, you don't have a conflict of interest because you're not in the regulated area. In some ways, that was the point of my comment. You were actually not in the regulated area. Neither am I. Jeff might be. No, you would have no conflict whatsoever. I mentioned that just as a point of interest, just that the properties abutting the Charles make more impact and whatever. This has to do with the permit, which almost has nothing to do with actual phosphorus into the Charles River.
Okay, thanks. I thought that was a criticism. Thank you.
No, you're good. So, Marion, did your question get answered?
No, just a general observation. These structural adaptations for reducing phosphorus are, we've seen it's very hard to find a way to do it through structural adaptation. So in the MS4 permit language, is there or will there be opportunities to maximize our non-structural? I mean, there are plenty of opportunities from just a rational science point of view that you could maximize, say, the preservation of intact forest for filtering and removal of phosphorus from water in the natural way, and we could take credit for the preservation of those natural controls that we've done, and maybe there are others as well. So tell me, would that be laughed at by the MS4 permit people, or can we maximize it?
I'll take that. The permit currently only includes the three non-structural BMPs, and we looked on whether we can ask for credit for the riparian buffers, because there are sections of roads that they do discharge to the wetlands and to the streams, but first the runoff goes through a riparian buffer, and there is no mention in the report for such a type of credit. And even I looked a bit into how they computed the phosphorus loads, and the way they did it before was to assign a lower coefficient to the roadways and impervious cover that it's disconnected. So that would be something we can look into in the future, but we expect some pushback from EPA on that.
Okay, Tom Trainer has his hand up for a patient long time.
Well, thank you. Just a couple of comments, and this topic is near and dear to my heart because it's not just the Charles River, but all our streams and ponds and farm pond and everything that I really want to applaud the town staff, Sean and Jeremy, working hard on this, and of course the AECom people. Real challenge for Sherborn because of anyone in the Charles River watershed. We have the lowest impervious percent area. It's roughly about 6%. There's towns in the Charles that are approaching 30, 40, 50% impervious surfaces. So we're not the reason for the problem in the Charles, but as has been mentioned, the EPA I'm normally a big fan of. The EPA here, I think, really has dropped the ball in setting priorities. But I just wanted to finish with one question to the AECom. I'm sure it was a huge decision that you had to discuss with the town staff about picking either focusing on solely the MS4 area versus the town as a whole for the phosphorus reduction calculations. You went over well the needs for the MS4 area, which is quite small for Sherborn. We do have 5 streams that feed into the Charles. We have huge open space. 50% of the town is open space. And I'm just wondering, in a nutshell, what was it about the phosphorus reduction required for the whole town? The benefit, of course, is you've got more potential areas that you could build BMPs on streams or wetlands, in town forest and other areas. What was the big deciding factor going the direction that the town has taken?
Should I take that one, Sean? I can speak to that. So just looking at all the other BMPs that are within the community outside of the MS4 area, with the current tools, we don't think that will get enough credits. We only had about 9 pounds for the 5 BMPs within the MS4 area. But for example, if we looked at the school, which has a large BMP and treatment, with the tools we have, we don't think we can get more than somewhere less than 10%, 10 pounds per year, probably in the 5 pounds, 5 to 6 pounds range. And also it's easier to start with a smaller area and then go to the entire community later on if it is needed. But the reality is that with the phosphorus loads and the phosphorus reductions that the town, the permit allows, based on a just back of the envelope calculations, we would need to treat every single square foot of the roads within the community to get the credits that we need. And we don't think that is feasible. There is no land to do that. It is unrealistic. So moving forward with the smaller area and the smaller requirements where we can actually show that we did our due diligence and we are proposing BMPs. We are still meeting the 8 and almost meeting the 10-year permit. If we take the community approach, we would not be able to meet any of those. So that was the decision.
Very good, thank you.
Also, the AECom did not choose to use the MS4 versus the town. We did that. They presented the options, and based on the increase that we were going to see if we had to go to the whole town, we chose that.
Good.
All right. I don't see any other questions. That the whole team, James, you got a great crew here, and thank you for hanging in there with us tonight and educating us as well.
Thank you.
Right. So Jeremy, the next item on the agenda is the Dopping Brook, the ever going Dopping Brook flooding issue that we've been down there 2 or 3 times to visit.
Yeah, sure. I wanted to give the select board an update of where we're at with some of the interim measures that we've been working on. AECom has helped us with this. In discussions with the Conservation Commission, they requested that we submit an RDA or a request for determination of applicability to do the work that we're proposing. So AECom had helped put that together. A full version of that draft RDA was in the select board packet. Up on the screen here, I just have the relevant plan associated with that, just so I can describe what is being proposed to help in the interim for this drainage way. This has been pre-screened with the Conservation Commission. They've offered some minor comments, the co-chairs, and we'll be filing the RDA formally with them in the near future. What we're proposing, and this is based on meetings with a number of the abutters, is to essentially add an additional sluice gate, something to this effect. There's an existing sluice gate on the property, the Silverwood Farm property, which it essentially, when that operates, it's kind of diverts more flow through the stone wall onto the Gonfrad property and into the drainage way down Dopping Brook. So we're proposing another one of these sluice gate structures to give, it'll be placed in the town's easement so that the town would have the ability to monitor and control the flow through that. That would be placed within the town's easement on the Gonfrad property. We're also proposing just a slight berm, an elevated berm along one of the drainage ways to help channel the water, to divert the water down the hill and keep it within the existing drainage channels. There has been an issue in the past where it's kind of overtopped the existing drainage channels and gone and sort of flooded the Mitchell property, which is this pie-shaped piece here. And we hope that those two, and together with some selective cleaning of the existing drainage ways through the easement, we hope that this will help in the interim. We have had ongoing conversations with the Conservation Commission about longer term solutions and what they may end up doing to enforce some of their requirements on the Silverwood Farm property and through the notice of intent that was issued there. So we're working together with the Conservation Commission, with the requirements they placed on the abutting property, to come up with some interim ideas. And we hope this is going to help address the solution.
Will that also help? Because across the Dopping Brook Road is the Levine property too, where there's a sharp drop off there,
Yeah, so we've also been able to get the Central Mass Mosquito Control District involved, and they've created a project, and I'll go down to that.
Yeah.
So downstream, so this is Dopping Brook Road. This is sort of downstream of what we were just looking at. Some of those downstream drainage ways have been, silted up or collapsed and are in need of maintenance. And the Central Mass Mosquito Control District is offering to do that work as part of the agreement that we have with them. We're a member of that district and actually pay annually into that district. And so this is sort of the return on that payment. They will come out and do some maintenance of these drainage ways, and it'll help the downstream area of flow better. Talking to the Levines, the Wares, the Maruzis, and the Dodds. They'll all benefit from some clean out that hopefully will take place within the next few weeks. The Mosquito Control District actually has filed these plans. I think the Conservation Commission is hearing them tonight. They get a notice from them. Generally, it's a maintenance activity that's approved by the Conservation Commission, and the district will mobilize to do this work after getting some signed notices back from the abutters, which we've met with all the abutters, including the downstream property, the Dodds, and they're all supportive, looking forward to the project, and are signing the necessary paperwork to get that back to the Mosquito Control District. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions of where we're at.
Well, that's terrific, because this has been a thorn in our side for a long time. So this is I'm glad for the update. First question I see is Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend Jeremy for picking up the ball on this thing and running it into the end zone. I know the neighbors were quite alarmed over the flooding that's been going on, and I know the Conservation Commission and Silverwood Farm and everybody else was in a stalemate as to what was going to happen. And this seems like an elegant step forward. So thank you, Jeremy, for doing that.
Thank you.
I think there's a lot of people involved too. Sean was very involved, and Michael Lesser did a lot of there's been a lot of people that were analyzing and looking at this.
Thank you to all.
Yep.
I think you were involved, Jeff, too, weren't you?
I was a bystander in hiking boots, basically.
Thank you all for getting this done.
You're welcome.
Okay. The next agenda item, Marion, is just the sort of the briefing plan for the Water and Sewer District warrant article. You want to walk us through your really more of an announcement, I guess I would call it.
Yeah, it's not an update. I think you all have heard enough about this for the moment. I won't bore you with it again. But we do have a series of official appearances.
Hey, Jeff, I'm saying goodbye. I'm going to step out.
Okay, good night,
right.
Aaron.
Bye,
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, next Wednesday, I've been asked to present it to advisory. I think that's sort of a dress rehearsal for the official advisory select board public hearing. There are 2 dates that the Council on Aging has organized with the developer, and we'll see how we play into that. I've talked to the developer, and they definitely want us to take the lead on that rather than them. That's on October 3rd and October 10th. And then there's the warrant, the official warrant hearing that we have coming up.
I don't think it's the 10th. Am I wrong? I think it's the 13th.
Oh,
It?
the 13th. Yes, I'm sorry. I misread. It's 10 a.m. on the 13th.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, I've been putting together and modulating PowerPoint presentations and doing a lot of these. And I just kind of want to make the board aware that everybody on the board, except Eric, of course, should be really well versed in this stuff, because now it's a select board baby. I mean, we are sponsoring this at town meeting. The working group has basically done their job under Jeremy's leadership. I think we've come to a draft legislation that is now being vetted, left and right. And I just want to encourage any of the select board that, or any of the working group for that matter, but in particular, the select board that hasn't been involved yet, to look for opportunities to help us present this to the town. It seems like such a great idea. It should pass. We all like it. In fact, there is a lot of pushback out there, and it's not at all sure of passing. So the more that we can do to inform people of what the implications for the town and the importance for the town, the better. So that's just a shout out. And, no vote needs to be taken. I'm not expecting anything, but perhaps if you want to talk about it a little, that's fine. But I'm happy to provide any materials that would help anybody.
Awareness, I think, is really, just making people aware of what's going on, what it entails. And I think people are definitely interested and curious, I guess I would say. Monday night, I swam the perimeter of Farm Pond. I just exhausted, walked out of the pond, and a woman came up to me and asked me about the water district. I don't even know. I didn't even know who she was. I don't know how she knew who I was, but it was pretty funny.
But I just share with Marion that there will be a select board meeting in the near future in which we go through the warrant.
Yes.
We will get to this article and we will decide at that point, do we support it or do we not support it? And that's when it's really the select board's baby when we vote to support it, assuming that we do vote to support it. And I certainly support it.
I think that night is September 21st also, Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point, Paul. Thanks for pointing that out. So it isn't officially our baby yet, but it soon will be. So we might as well get ready for it.
Right. Yes.
Jeff, if I may add on to what Marion was saying, there has been a fair amount of interest and many people inquiring whether they could absentee vote for town meeting or do a proxy vote. And then we've had to unfortunately let them know that you do need to be present at town meeting to vote on any and all of these warrant articles that are presented at to special town meeting. So we definitely urge folks to attend and vote.
Right,
right.
and there is a cohort of people that that really are very worried about it. They don't quite get it yet, and so we really need to make sure we get the facts out. I just did today a new PowerPoint presentation that's a little bit simpler and more direct, and I'm happy to present that to you guys at our next meeting when you decide if you support it or not, and you can decide if it's good. Okay.
Do we know also when is the advisory public hearing? Is that going to be an evening hearing, or is that going to be a Saturday hearing?
The Wednesday evening, I think
An
one of the
evening. It's on the
isn't that right, Dan?
27th.
Yeah,
Correct.
Wednesday, September 27th at 7 p.m.
Yep.
usual advisory meeting time.
Okay. Yeah, because I mean, usually I think a lot of the public awareness of the town meeting articles happens at that public hearing. So
yeah,
I think I'm presuming, Marion, that you'll be presenting this at the public hearing, and all, the rest of the select board will be there. So I think that will be a good opportunity to also sort of proselytize.
Yeah, we mail that flyer to each home and just announcing the public hearing. So,
and Dan, you planning to have the advisory hearing virtual?
Yes, it'll be on Zoom.
And I am happy to hand over the PowerPoints or whatever you need to anyone else who wants to present this at any of these events. I'm willing to do it, but I'm happy if someone else would like to too. So
my vote's for Matt.
Yeah, Matt's our spokesperson. He's very good. But I had Diane print it for me today too. All right. Thank you, Marion.
Okay.
So we're going to move on now to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion on the payroll?
So moved.
Draft minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Stephen.
Aye.
Marion.
Aye.
Paul.
Aye.
And I am aye as well. So then we're down to routine business. For select board reports, the only thing I wanted to ask Jeremy, Margot sent us a note, Margot Pawlicki sent us a note today about grants for the cultural commission or cultural council. Do you want to talk about that? I'm not really qualified to talk about it, Jeremy, but
Sure.
Do we want to bring Eric back into the meeting, or is he?
I think he's done for tonight, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Margot's reached out. She's
do that on your town administrator reports. I was gonna say if you didn't, I would do it, but and I don't have anything else. We did do the walkthrough of 34 Brush Hill Road with Bob and the Mass Housing people. It was really a great walkthrough. It's a beautiful site. So
I've got one report.
Okay, go for it.
So it was last week, I think I met with a group from the Charles River Watershed Association, and basically they are making a push for all of the communities that are in the watershed that have not adopted the Community Preservation Act to basically discuss it and bring it up again, because 2024 is a presidential election year, and I guess historically those tend to be the years that CPA ballot measures are most successful. So I had a good meeting with them. I think probably everybody on the select board is familiar with the CPA. It's come up before. I know that the town has voted it down once before, and I know a few years ago, at least when I was on advisory, it came up as a placeholder on a draft warrant, and then subsequently got dropped. So I wasn't sure who brought that up and then who subsequently dropped it. But I guess I wanted to see if what the select board felt about essentially bringing it up again. I think their recommendation was that, you know, we make it an agenda item, and then we would basically appoint like a local commission, you know, just made up of various people in town that would be sort of stakeholders in CPA. So, you know, someone from advisory, probably someone from select board, someone from, you know, open space probably, and, you know, just whatever. We would come up with a commission to basically look into it and decide whether or not we wanted to make a push to adopt CPA in town. It would be for the annual town meeting in 2020 in the spring.
In the spring. Now, didn't they, I thought like 4 or 5 years ago, part of the concern was that they sort of watered down the benefits a little bit. I mean, it was, if you got in 10 years ago or whenever it started.
Yeah, for sure. It's like when it started, you know, the state match was like 100% for several years. And I remember when I started on this whole town government business, I was on the housing partnership. And so that was the first time that I looked into it, you know, as a possible way to get some funds to back some affordable housing projects.
Yeah.
And I looked at, okay, well, had Sherborn approved CPA when it came up for a vote, whenever it was 10, 12 years ago, how much money would we have gotten? And it was a pretty absurd amount of money. It was like $11 million or something that basically we just, you know, said no to like $11 million. So it's not that anymore. I think the state match is now it's like between 30 to 40% basically. And you know, I think they said that the goal is basically to keep it at around 30 to 40%. You know, it was 5 years ago or so, maybe Boston adopted CPA, and that just like wiped out all of the funds. But subsequently, the state has put more money into the program to try to maintain, you know, the ability to match 30 to 40%. You know, there's a lot of details. Essentially, it's like, I don't think we should be talking about all of it tonight, but just is it worth bringing up as an agenda item next meeting to actually really talk about it? I mean, I think yes.
I could.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
So I was the one that brought it up before, and George Morrow and I had a discussion at the board level, and we reached a consensus that we wanted to see an economic analysis over the last few years. If we had the CPA, what difference would it have made for the projects we actually did? What impact it would have had? And so the board at that time commissioned the then town administrator to look into it. And to my knowledge, we never got a report back on that. That town administrator left, and here we are with a new town administrator. So I might suggest that we ask Jeremy to look into that kind of analysis. I think that if what Steve has just said about the affordable housing part, $11 million that we've turned our back on, those kinds of numbers are very persuasive to the voters. And if it's documented from the records of the town, we can actually show people how we would have saved money because we would have been utilizing state funds rather than taxpayer dollars for things we actually did. So I would suggest, I think the board, our prior board, had already voted to have that study done. And so I would respectfully ask Jeremy if he would be willing to do that study and provide it to the board.
Well, Paul, that's a talking point, but the problem I have with it, it doesn't have anything to do with moving forward. It's a past analysis of what could have happened. I would rather do an analysis of what potential benefits exist for us going from where we're at, not what we could have done 10 years ago. You know what I mean? I understand what you're saying is it shows that if we'd done it 10 years ago, we'd have had all this value, but we can't do that now because the state's funding it at a lower level, and it's not representative of what we can do going forward is my concern.
Well, I think it still is a good idea to put some real numbers out there, even if it is going forward, or even if it's this year, you know.
Yes, I think I would just,
would
I
be
wouldn't
in our
go back
budget.
in time, is all I'm saying, Mary, and I agree, but I would just go from where we're at and say, you know, here's what the program offers and what we could benefit from it. I just don't see the historical perspective being useful to us.
Well, the
Yeah, I mean, I
objection,
think. No, go ahead, Paul.
the objection to the adoption of it was that it was just going to add more taxes to an already overburdened second highest property taxes in the state type of mentality. So
Yeah.
why burden us? And so the point of the analysis is to show that it actually would have helped the taxpayers because we would have been able to shift money away from the tax base to
Yes.
state funds. And therefore, that opposition to its enactment isn't mathematically accurate.
Well, your analysis isn't accurate either, though, because we can't do that going forward. In other words, the benefits going forward are less than they were 10 years ago. So we need to show them what the benefits are that they can potentially realize, not ones that they could have realized.
But that's impossible to compute that because we don't know what projects there are.
Well, but the way you do that, I mean, that's what I did.
Well,
for
we
forever.
we sort of know what projects.
Scenario analysis can show you, you know, a range of possible outcomes.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, I think it's like we're getting into the weeds here, and I guess the point is it worthy of discussion, and is it worthy of looking into? And I feel like it's worthy of looking into, worthy of discussion. And I think the recommendation of the people I was talking to, I mean, what basically other towns near us have done, I think Natick actually was one of them. So Jeremy, you're probably familiar with it, is again, put together a small in-town kind of ad hoc working group to look at it, and then reach out to, there's like a community preservation association or something like that will help guide a lot of that analysis, you know, and can help come up with the numbers. And they've even got like marketing material. So if the town decides that, yeah, we want to make a push for it, they'll help to do the, you know, the public outreach and stuff and the marketing to basically, one, do the crunching of the numbers, and then two, figure out what is the best way to put this out to the community to hopefully get a positive vote, you know. So I don't think we need to talk about it tonight. I think we just need to agree that it's worth talking about, and then, you know, Diane can put it as an agenda item on the next meeting, and then we can officially vote to get it going, you know.
We'll look at the agendas, but we might wait till after the fall town meeting to do it, because we might have some busy agendas between now and then. But yes, I agree with you.
And I'm happy to put together some information to support that discussion. It might not be the full analysis, but I'm happy to get, I've already gathered some information and I could compile in a better format for you.
All right. I think Concord has a really good program too, as I recall. We did, I was on advisory with Stephen mentioned that. We did look at it, whatever century that was. Marion.
So does Lincoln. I just want to say that Tom Trainer made a good selling point. Sherborn residents have been paying for other towns' CPA funds for years now. It's about time we paid for our own.
Yep. All right. So, Marion or Paul, do you have any select board updates?
No.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have some town administrator ones?
Yeah, sure. I do wanted to cover that item from Margot. So she's been inquiring about, you know, whether the town can apply for grants from the Mass Cultural Council, which is currently has about $44 million in grants they're giving to Mass cultural or cultural districts. From my understanding, Sherborn does have a cultural council, which is one of the prerequisites. However, we don't have a formally designated district. So that's kind of one of the precursors to be able to apply for these grants, is to actually apply for a designated district through the Mass Cultural Council, and there's a whole process to do that, and sort of information submitted and rationale for that to be eligible for these grants. So she's just raised the idea that it's another missed opportunity if we don't move forward and establish a district, we're not able to tap into these grant funds. And one of the examples she gave for some of the potential, grant program or projects we could do with these grant funds is like relocating the Historic Society, contributing towards that project, might be an eligible grant. So she's just kind of wishing, hoping that we kick the tires a bit on how we might strategize on going forward.
We didn't get her to volunteer, but we got her to consider it.
Right.
To help.
I mean, what it needs would be, sort of the champions should be the cultural council, who actually, I don't know if I've actually met or had any meetings with them. So
Diane read the names to me today. Diane read the names to me this afternoon, actually.
Okay.
There's four or five people, as I recall.
Christy Rainey's on there. I believe she's the chair. Kathy Horrigan Dye is another member of the Arts Council, as well as Leanne Wen is a member. There might be others, but at the top, just off the top of my head, I don't know who
Do they have regular meetings? Are they an active
They
group?
usually only meet in September and October. They meet like twice a year. So they review the applications, they get the applications in, and then in October, they decide where they're going to disperse the money from what applicants have applied. So they usually only meet twice a year.
All right. Any other ones, Jeremy?
Yeah, a follow-up from last meeting when Paul inquired about the crossing gates. We didn't have the schedule, but at the time we thought it was going to be delayed significantly, but based on the Saratoga Rail Engineering Company has actually requested some police details for 4 days from September 25th to the 28th. We're confirming with the Mass Rail folks that it is actually the installation of the gates, which it's highly likely it is. They wouldn't be scheduling those police details for 4 days otherwise. So we'll get the word out more, but the gate crossings at North Main Street for the rail, we hope to see being installed the week of the September 25th. So later this September, which would be great. Also wanted to relay that the Tri-County Regional Vocational School did receive MSBA approval. So they're going to be eligible to receive a little over $80 million in MSBA reimbursement for their project. Their project was valued at about $280 million. So that certainly takes the hit off, and
third of it, a little less than a third. Yeah.
So that sort of was a prerequisite to carry on with their district-wide vote, which is this spring, which there'll be a ballot vote here in Sherborn as part of that. So that's still moving forward, and their project have received that good news. So I believe that's it. But the Capital Budget Committee did submit or send out some guidance to all the budget makers for the capital budgets. They have a meeting coming up on September 12th that they've invited me to talk about how we can, help with their submittal process, review process, and compiling those capital requests. Advisory is also met and reorganized.
Let me just finish on capital budget, just to add to that. Two things. One, they have a new chairperson. Corey Lincoln has stepped down, and also the biggest change is they're trying to accelerate the schedule. So capital budgets are due, I think, was it late November or something? I forget.
Yeah, that's correct. And they're looking for a little bit more pre-screening from town administration as well, compiling. So
they're trying to have it not be a last minute event like we've sometimes had. So
yeah. And advisory, Dan is voted the chair again to carry on. So I'm looking forward to working with him and his team on the budget going forward. And they've put together a scheduled work plan for the special town meeting and a tentative plan for the budget for FY25. So happy to send out that to the full board if anybody's interested in their planned schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
That's all I have, folks. Does someone want to make a motion to
Move to adjourn.
adjourn our meeting? Thank you, Paul. You're good at adjourning and accepting funds. We got your number. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Stephen,
Aye.
Marion,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
and I as well. Thank you, everyone. Great meeting.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Yep.
Good night.